start thinking about having a conversation with people around not just sizing for worst case, but also sizing for the most common case.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, during the heating season, there's the temperature where you spend the most hours. And then during the cooling season, there's a temperature where you spend the most hours. And, you know, worst case load here is like 5 degrees, but we probably spend the most hours somewhere between, 25 and 35. And so if you're able to do load matching, not only, so worst case, you're hopefully doing load matching no matter what equipment you have. But if you're able to understand that you want to be having nice long run cycles in the most common case, that might help people better understand their decisions between single stage, 2-stage, and 5-stage, because you'll be able to show them the different overlaps and how far away they are from being able to run continuous under the most common case. Does that kind of make any sense at all? I mean,
to me it does, and I'll tell you why. I use a likely load range, but as you know, we have to do a manual J. And so 90% of the time on the likely load range, the manual J is coming in either past the red on heating. What they have is past the red on heating, and on cooling, it's in the red. And so when we end up telling them about the 99%, which I don't use that term because they won't understand it. I just say the peak conditions. And so what I call my load calculation that I have to do is a simplified peak conditions load calculation. And I ask them what happens when it's 80 degrees, and this is sized for 95. And so, that makes them think, well, what does happen? Well, it doesn't work right at 80 degrees, and it does at 95, 3 days out of the year. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So I think we need more feedback like that. If you have educational narratives that you share with people to help them get these concepts. And because I sort of have a feeling that we might want to bake that into, even if we don't bake it into the report, I think we might want to bake it into the visit.
It would be
sounds like you already have.
Yeah. Is it possible to get some representative data as you showed a bell curve for expected temperatures and then a comparable one for run times, something that we could overlay and show how much the equipment's going to run and how much it might cycle.
Yeah, that would be that would be a goal. I think that would be an ultimate goal. Yes, and I think you definitely don't want the equipment to be twice as big in its output under the most common case, or more than that, because then it's only running half the time or less.
Yeah.
Right. Or I'm not sure that that example lines up directly, and it may not, but it would be nice to know those things, and it'd be awesome if software could provide that information for the prospect so that they could think that through.
All you'd have to do, this is just me thinking, all you'd have to do on a manual J is, instead of putting peak conditions, you could put conditions for some other temperature.
Yeah.
So you don't have to
put
lower load.
Right.
Change the load. So you'd run two load calcs, but then you would have to probably, and that's And that data does exist. That's in the weather data.
Yeah,
So
right.
you just have to get the weather data.
Yeah.
I have another question, Reedie.
Hmm.
How, and you may not have absolute data for it. How often do you downsize equipment?
Probably 50, maybe 60% of the time.
And is that because of the homeowner's choice? I guess that's a separate question. If they insist on going oversized, of course, you're going to give them what they want. But are you only finding the equipment to be oversized 50% of the time?
No. On the contrary, it's oversized 95% of the time.
Yeah.
What I do is I tell them, I show them what the load calculation says. We didn't always have the likely load range. That's been something that's been a wonderful tool that's come about in the last several months. But even before that, I would take them and I would do just what I said. I would show them load calculation. I'd show what the 99% temperatures were, the peak. And then I'd say, so if it's oversized here, what do you think it's going to be when it's 80? And I always go back to between 80 and 90 degrees. And then in the wintertime, it's usually going to be 30 degrees, or something along those lines. And so they can see that and they can make the choice. Before about 2 years ago, when I first got into this, I didn't really give them a choice. I just did what I wanted to do. And then I realized that's taking a whole load of risk. And so I stopped doing that. I don't like purposely oversizing something, but if they've got something and it's purposely oversized, even if they want to go up, that's what it's going to be.